Hello everybody and welcome to the very first episode of the Two Norries podcast. And I'm joined here by my friend Timmy Long, who's going to be my co-host. Say hi, Timmy.
Hi, Timmy.
Good man. First of all, thanks very much to everybody who donated to the GoFundMe and everybody else who helped us out as well that don't want to be named. And we hope you enjoy it. You know, there's been a demand for it. A lot of hurt people looking for information and guidance and support around issues like addiction, mental health. So hopefully this podcast will be relevant for you and please enjoy it. So the first episode, I'm going to introduce Timmy. He's going to give his story. We're going to have a conversation, and then going forward, we're going to have some guests on, some psychologists, academics, people in recovery, and other relevant people. So enjoy. So, well, Tim, how are you?
I'm good.
We're
Small
fine.
bit nervous now. It's first one, really.
I know. We're finally here.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, took a lot of work to get to this place at the
Yeah,
moment. Yeah,
there was a few late nights,
yeah,
wasn't there?
yeah. You were out here till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
in the morning
Yeah.
after the long day's work. Yeah, but no, we're delighted, and we're delighted to have the lads from Unity Media Network as well helping us. You know,
Yes, yeah.
really kind of improve the production. Obviously, we're working full time. We're doing other things at the moment, so it's great to have the lads to help us out. You know, and really makes the podcast, you know, just that little bit more professional. And as we said earlier on, if nobody listened to it, we do it anyway because this is what we want to do.
Exactly.
And if people watch it and people find it helpful and entertaining and useful, then better again.
Yeah.
So we'll start from the start, Timmy. Where are you from? How was life back in the day?
I grew up in Hollyhill, Arcullen, James, a few doors down from you.
Yeah.
But before that, I would have lived in Spriggs Road. There was flats down there when we were kids.
Yeah.
So that's where we kind of originally started off the family home. There was me, my mother, my father, and my younger brother Thomas. And from there, we moved to Arcullen, and we stayed there for most of my life.
Yeah.
But
What was Arcullen like? Even though I'm from Arcullen, for the people watching.
Arcullen was when we were growing up. There was a lot of kids. You know, there was a lot of soccer. I loved football growing up as a kid. I loved taking bikes apart and fixing them, and it was just something that it just took me away from everything, my thinking and everything. You know, it was just I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
You know, from I'll go back to the beginning. Early childhood. I have two younger brothers. I'm the oldest. And there's Thomas and John Paul. We grew up. There was no father in the household growing up. You know, my mother and father separated at a young age, and there was a lot of there was mental health issues within the household. My mother was she was sick. She wasn't, you know, and it was different.
Yeah.
You know, it was a really it was a difficult childhood.
Being the oldest of three, when there's no father in the house, did you take on that father role?
Yeah, I took on the father role. I basically done what I could, you know. I had to grow up fast, if that's the right word. You know, I had to grow up fast. I had the innocent child, was gone at a really young age. And I basically built up some form mechanisms, you know, just a demeanour, a really strong demeanour, to get me through a lot of difficult experiences as a young child.
What kind of a demeanour did you build up?
An angry demeanour, you know, very angry. There was a lot of violence in my family home, you know, a lot of violence. There was a lot of, as I said, there was a lot of mental health issues. And I've seen a lot in the house.
Yeah.
And it took its effect on me, you know. It took its effect. I remember, been always caught up in my head. I would have been an introvert person, always kind of inside, always kind of the one looking out at how everybody was, and caught up in my own head as a young child, you know.
So you would have been at a young age. You would have been a deep thinker.
Yes.
And how was school at the time?
Um, School was very, very difficult. You know, there was an awful lot going on at home, and when I was in school, I wasn't able to focus on what the teacher was talking about or anything, and I spent most of my time at the back of the class or outside the principal's office or whatever. You know, it was difficult, and later on, those effects
Yeah.
showed. You know,
And what were your grades? Were you able to achieve academically in school?
no, no, there was none. There was no such thing as a grade. I couldn't read or write basically. You
Yeah.
know,
And was there any additional support offered? Or?
no, there was nothing. There was nothing. All there was no. I was kind of kept up in the assembly of the school or outside the principal's office, or the end of the back of the class
Yeah.
was where I spent most of my time. You know, and that for a child, in my opinion, when looking back in hindsight now, is probably one of the worst things you could do to a child's confidence and self-esteem and things like that. It really kind of affected me, and it taught me that I was not good enough. You know, and I went through my adult life always believing that I wasn't good enough. You know, so
Yeah. So you know when you were going through school, then
yeah.
did you complete your junior cert and leaving cert, or how did that go?
No, no. When I hit the age of 10, I would have went on the hop from school a lot. Um, People from the area would know Hogan's Lane. I spent a lot of time in Hogan's Lane, you know, and we would have went
Hogan's
up
Lane and Ash's Boring.
Yes, we were at the pawn shop. Sorry, out to the woman who owns the pawn shop, but we were robbing Neil Varnish out of her shop and Tipex and anything that we could get a bit of a stone off, and
So just sorry to stop you, but from a very young age, you were looking for ways to get out of your head.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot going on for me in my own head, James, and I didn't know how to deal with it. You
Yeah.
know,
So you used the coping skills that's available to you, and at that time it was Tipex, nail varnish, solvents and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Like I grew up in a home where there was a single parent. You know, my mother, and she was unstable. Um, and there's other kids in the school out in the street then, and they see this like there was a lot of bullying. What I'm trying to say, you know, there was a lot of bullying as well because we didn't have anything, you know. There wasn't a lot of food there. There wasn't much of anything, you know. Clothes. There was a lot of hand-me-downs, you know, and things like that.
Yeah.
It was like we grew up in the 80s, James. The 80s were tough times for a lot of families, you know.
And if I can put some context there on Cullen, Knocknaheeny, Hollyhill, and even wider city northwest, there would have been housing estates built around 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
when there would have been a lot of working class families put up here, maybe employed in Lullums, Fords, Dunlops, and when the industry broke down, a lot of people became unemployed, and maybe the jobs didn't reoccur in the 80s, obviously, with the big recession. So, with a lot of big housing estates, maybe limited services at the time, unemployment, that breeds social problems.
Yeah.
So, that's the context that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like I'm talking about my story and how bad it was for me, but in general, it was bad for everybody. It's just that we had just a single parent and a parent that was unstable, and you know.
Yeah.
No, I just want to say one thing. Like my mother done everything she could in her own power that she thought was possible for us as kids, you know. It was just there were difficult times,
Yeah.
you know, for everyone, and you know we made the best of it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I know your mother. You know, I grew up in that house. Your mother used to be good friends with my mother.
Yeah.
And, you know, I seen her as a lovely lady, very good to me, very good for her sons, but obviously had her own issues and her own difficulties, you know.
Yeah.
And everybody, you know, there's a context to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And there's never anybody to blame. It's just about understanding your story. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of looking back and being able to identify what was going on at the time. It helps you then to understand your behaviour and how your outcomes became
Mm-hmm.
negative, let's say.
Yeah.
So when you finish school, you were talking about there, you created kind of an angry demeanour. Can you
Mm-hmm.
tell me more about that?
Well, what I created was this angry look. What it really was a form of protection to keep people away, keep people at distance, because um, there was, as I said earlier, there was a lot of bullying and things like that, and it was tough for me emotionally. I struggled as a teenager. I there was a lot of shit going on in my life that I didn't understand. There wasn't very much teaching to me growing up as a child. I had to learn everything really for myself, in terms of how to behave and how to everything.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
you learned like that aggression was how you dealt with.
everything.
Yeah,
The violence in my home, there was a lot of violence.
and then through the bullying,
Yeah.
you learned that if you're on the attack, you're less likely to be attacked.
Well, going back to the bullying, like I remember there was one particular guy that would have bullied me a lot when I was younger. Because of my appearance and other factors. And there was just one day I kind of really had it. I had enough, and I backed up to this bully. And I see an anger coming out in me that I never really experienced before. And this guy backed off. And from there on, um, I just kind of, it helped me,
Yeah.
it showed me that by backing up for myself, I could keep people at bay and keep them away from me, because I was very, very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um, Emotionally unstable,
Yeah.
and a lot of other things. I was always looking for that something to take me away from
Yeah.
what was going on for me in my life.
Yeah.
You know,
And so you learned then that to be mean looking, to be aggressive, you're not going to be bullied because
yeah,
you're quite a strong man. You've
yeah,
been strong since you're a child, really.
yeah,
And you got into the weightlifting, you got much bigger, you got the tattoos, and that was all about that kind of aggressive demeanour. Stay away from me. I mean, I'll hurt you, and it was really a coping mechanism.
yeah. It was just unknown to myself. I was after building this up. It wasn't until I got into recovery and I started to understand all these different things.
It's the beauty of recovery. We
Exactly.
get hindsight
Yeah.
and we get awareness and we can look back with a level of introspection. But at the time, you're just in it and you're just behaving. And that's all about it. There's very little thought goes into the
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
You're just day to day
Yeah.
survival. Make sure my brothers are safe. My mum is alright. We're fed. There's nobody coming to harm us, and that's it. But recovery, obviously, as I said, you become aware. You do some work on yourself, and then you look back and you begin to understand them really. So do you know when you were talking about using solvents and Tipex and stuff like that? Wow, how did the drug using career escalate? Or
Um, I'll just go back a small bit. You know, back into when I was in primary. When I was primary school, my mother would have got involved with a man, and like things in the household began to get a little bit easier, because she had someone in her life that she she loves, and things really changed for the better. Um, and he stayed with us for he was there for a while. We'll get to that a little bit more a little bit later in the conversation. I just wanted to clarify that and just mention that because we were after jumping a little bit forward. But the drug use really escalated. It went from solvents and probably drinking here and there at up to the age of 12. When I went to secondary school, then it was just I needed to fit in.
yeah,
I needed a group to fit in with, and I fitted in with the exact same people as me. Broken homes, violent. Um,
is this a common theme in the area you're from?
Well, James, let's put it this way. My role models growing up were neighbours around me that had been to prison, because everybody looked up to the guy that was in prison because he had this form of respect. You have to remember we came from a really, really pulverized, drug-ridden area where it was, you know.
Like in our area where we go up, there's no teachers living in our estate. There's no doctors or nurses or vets or Gardaí or prison officers. You know, that's not where we grew up. Where we grew up, the best people, the people who's doing well, was doing trades or selling drugs or crime or some sort of you know, Labour Day work or manual work. You know, so we've limited role models really.
And those role models, I wanted to follow in their footsteps as well. I couldn't wait till the day I went to prison, you know, and any of these things, you know. So, but my drug use escalated in secondary school. I rarely went to secondary school. Rarely went into class. We usually went on the hop, down toward down in the orthopedic and everywhere really we could find somewhere. You know, we would have used then as well.
Yeah.
We would have smoked hash and took tablets and stuff until I was about 13, 14. It really kind of escalated into kind of heavier drugs. We were starting to use ecstasy and fucking other shit, you know, other things as well. And that's when things really, really went.
And you're talking there about early to mid 90s when the ecstasy scene was through the roof.
Yeah.
£20 an e-job.
25. Yeah. There were mad times, James, you know. Around that time, like I was 15 or 16, I think. It was the Sir Henry's years, you know. I think it was back in 96, 97. I could have been earlier again.
The golden era of Cork clubbing.
Yeah. It was myself and another friend. We used to break into Sir Henry's through the side door, get into we were fucking, we were tiny, you know, but we were wild. But the ecstasy and other stuff crept in when I was 14, 15, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved.
What was it about the ecstasy that you liked?
Do you know what, James? It just took me away from every fucking negative and bad experience that I had going on in my life at the time. You know, I was completely out of control, you know, and there was no control over me. My mother had no control over me, her partner hadn't. Nobody, I had no kind of good, no one in my life at the time that I would have looked up to and listened to, you know, because I just completely rebelled, and I had a really, really negative attitude as well towards my mother and her partner. And I would have stayed out all night.
I remember when I took my first day in my teens. I would have been in a very dark place mentally at the time. And I remember I took my first day and I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. The sense of love, belonging in the group, you know, the warmth, all that I was missing out of my life at the time. And I took we used to take Tuesday mornings, midweek, you know, down in St. Anne's in the field, and just always craved that, you know, sense of belonging, sense of warmth, sense of love, you know. And then it's like being around peers and we're all struggling, you know, and I don't know, there was something about an ecstasy that kind of brought people together and kind of made things okay as bad as they were.
I remember when I took my first I took it with two friends of mine, and I don't think I got any buzz off it that night. You know, I think I was probably thinking about it too much. But I went home anyway, and I fucking woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's my brother up on top of me, and he's shaking me. He's saying, what the He said, are you okay? Are you okay? What? Are you alright? And I said, I'm grand. And we got up out of the bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and went out fucking robbing. That was the way it was, you know. Nothing was ever given to us, money or anything, because there was nothing there. I went out robbing, and I'd say for about 6 months I would have fucking took ease for probably every night of the week, and I just kept going. That's when things really got out of control. And You know, and that's when my family really started to get worried about me then, it's because I wasn't coming home, I'd be missing for days, and
Yeah.
you know, there was a few overdoses from tablets. You know, I'd wake up in bushes.
Yeah.
And
We're getting in trouble with the guards, the
like,
Gardaí at this time.
yeah, I had a few serious charges with the guards as well. Remember now, I'm only 14 or 15 at this stage, you know.
Yeah.
And
What kind of offences would you be involved in back in the day?
robbing cars. Um, there was one or two major serious assaults.
Yeah.
Houses,
Yeah.
anything at all, anything where I knew I could get money to get drugs.
Yeah.
I would have fucking basically.
Yeah.
You have to remember at that age, James, I had no awareness. I never had any awareness.
Yeah.
I had no empathy um, or anything that for anybody. You know,
Yeah.
I was just completely out of control. You know, nobody could tell me anything. You know, because it just would go over my head.
Yeah. So, you know, earlier on you mentioned about people in the area that you looked up to, the role models have been to prison, and you looked at prison as something that you nearly wanted to go to experience it, whatever. So, you know, when you're committing crimes and you're young and you're getting involved with the guards and that, were you ever afraid of going to prison, or was it ever a deterrent for you?
That fear was always there. That fear was always there, you know, because you, I still wanted to go there because I wanted the same respect that all these other guys were getting because they had been to prison.
Yeah.
But the fear was there still, you know.
Yeah.
I think, like one thing I've noticed about myself, and a lot of people from the north side are of the city that we're
Yeah.
very good with to adapting to situations, you know,
Yeah.
because it's just it's a tough area, you know.
Yeah, well, you have, and when you're coming from a tough area like that, you have to be adaptable. As you said, just be resourceful. You have to work at what you have, and we don't live in a vacuum. Like we live in a material world, a consumer society, and when you haven't got the legitimate means to buy nice stuff, you want the nice stuff. Still, you want the nice trainers, the nice hoodie, you know. So you have to get it illegitimately, and it ends up in robbing, and it ends up in all these sorts of activities that wider society kind of looks down at. Oh, he's a scumbag, he's this and that and the other. But we want the same things as you. We just don't have the same opportunities to get them.
Yes, I agree. You know,
Yeah.
like some of the best people I've ever came across in my life are from the north side of the city.
Yeah.
They give you the time of day. They say hello.
Yeah.
You know, they understand. You know, and that's
And we should say 99% of the people in the north side of the city don't go to prison.
no,
It was just the people we looked
yeah,
up to did.
yeah. It James, Knocknaheeny, Churchfield, all these areas around the north side have a reputation for being um, bad areas. You know, that's not true.
No.
You know, some of the best people that as I said, some of the best people I know, some of my best friends are from the north side, and
Yeah.
you know they fucking give you their breath in the morning. It's just a nice area, you know. You'll
It is.
always get in the low, and
Yeah.
you know, but we do produce some of the fucking city's maddest as well, like.
We do have the social problems, and there's no denying it, you know.
Yeah.
But so going back to what you were talking about there was the ecstasy, the alcohol you were just about to talk about when you were getting in trouble with the law.
Yeah, I would have got into some like I'll just bring you back a little bit. When I was about 15, my drink and drug use was fucking out of control. I wasn't coming home at all. I would have tried to run away to England a few times, and there was something bad happened at home. You know, there was my mother's partner of 8 or 9 years. He passed away suddenly, and that kind of destroyed my mother for a bit of time. You know, destroyed her. She had to go away for a while. You know, at the hospital, and I was left to do whatever I wanted. You know, I was out of control. I didn't have to answer to anybody anymore because my grandmother moved into the house with us, and everything just escalated from there downhill then, you know, and alarm bells started going off then from guards. This fella's fucking out of control. What are we going to do with him? You know, you've all these different kind of agencies involved in your life, probation and social workers and community officers and all these, you know, and I was taking no notice of any of it. You know, all I wanted to do was keep doing what I was doing, you know.
Yeah.
I had no awareness of what I was doing or who I was hurting or any of this, you know. But then I had a really, really kind of serious charge where I was after hurting somebody during an incident, and I was looking at some serious prison time for that, and that's when authorities around me, there was a GLO officer,
Juvenile liaison officer, yeah.
his name was Ned Kirby. It's a long time ago. Yeah. My mother would have been away at the time, and he had kind of got onto my family, and they said, like, we have to do something with this little fella, and they put me into a home down in West Cork, Clonakilty. It was called Ahiol. It's a long time ago.
Yeah. Matt Talbot,
Show
Drug
me
Services.
Yeah, is it?
It's Matt Talbot, yeah.
But like, fuck it. I was 15 at the time when I went down there. And
what was the experience like being away from home? Did you enjoy the break? Was it respite for you?
It was like a breath of fresh air, James.
Yeah.
Do you know, it was a breath of fresh air. I was away from my normal environment where I had to be somebody else. I had to keep, you know, I had to be a certain person. You know, I had to keep that macho image of who I was for people. Because by this stage, at the age of 15, I was being reckoned. I had a bit of a fucking notoriety as a hard man. You know, because tough. You know, because I was very, very violent. You know, and when I got down there, all that was gone for me. I was able to relax a little bit. You know, I didn't have to be anybody, and you know, I was still a teenager. I was only 15, and
still a child, like.
Yeah, you know, and I was there for a while. I was there for 6, maybe 7 months, and you know, and I don't think I got any inspiration or help from that place.
Yeah.
I was too young. I was really too young, you know. And then all of a sudden the place closed. You know, the place closed, and it was Ned Kirby and Father Paul were after coming up with the idea of let's send them to France. You know, there was another treatment centre in France. So by this stage I was 16, and I went to France, and I stayed in France for probably just over 2 years.
Well, tell me what the treatment centre in France was like.
Well, the treatment centre in France was like back here you run away.
Yeah.
In the treatment centre you fuck off, and that's it. But over in France, like, you run away, they catch you, they give you a few clatters. I was only fucking 16 at the time.
Yeah.
And they kind of just show you who's boss. They have your passport, they have all your money. So don't ask me why I even ran away. I didn't even know where I was.
Yeah.
You know, in the middle of the country. But I tried that a few times, and until they kind of tamed me. They tamed me down. There was all forms of nationalities there. You had Spanish, Italian, Russian, American, from everywhere, you know.
And what was it like over there? What would you be doing? Would you be working?
I worked on a farm.
Yeah.
I worked on a farm, and I played soccer, and they loved me because I was handy at the soccer as a kid, and they loved me. And the guy that was responsible of the centre over there was a recovering addict as well, and he kind of took a liking to me because I was a tough kid, you know, and I worked on the farm. I worked really hard for him as well, and you know, I didn't get much shit from him, you know. So
I remember when you came back, you had about 4 languages.
Yeah, I actually could speak Italian, a bit of French, and a bit of Spanish. I'd hear them to hear. I just fucking go thing going around the back of my head. My mother and There was a few of them in the family actually fucking thought I was gay, like, when I came back.
And between the ages 16 and 18, you're in France, you're working on a farm, hard working,
Yeah.
you mature physically as well.
Yeah.
You come home a bigger man.
I was big and solid, and when I came home, I actually managed to stay clean and sober for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I stopped going to. I was going to AA at the time with another person, and like, I didn't know too much about AA at the time, or I didn't know too much about anything, James. You know, because in France, we just had these meetings every once in a while in the evenings. There was no therapy.
Yeah.
The therapy they thought they were giving you was working on a farm, just keeping you busy. But
Yeah.
there was absolutely no kind of one-to-one therapy or anything like this. Excuse me.
All right.
So from there, when I came home, and I went to a few meetings with this guy, and after the meetings, he'd light up a joint outside the door, and it kind of
Yeah.
it destroyed the whole process for me in
Yeah.
meetings, you know.
You're either in recovery or you're not.
Yeah, and especially when I was it was just my first introduction to all this, you know, and I didn't really understand it too well. Maybe if I had somebody else guiding me back then, things would have been different.
It just shows the importance of a good mentor.
It does. It does. It's vital. But I wasn't ready, obviously.
Yeah.
Back then, I needed to go through a lot more
Yeah.
before things changed for me, you know.
Yeah. So after 6 months, relapse.
I relapsed, and I said to myself, like, alcohol alcohol for me was the worst,
Yeah.
because I blacked out every time I drank.
And what way was your behaviour?
I was violent. I was very, very violent.
So when you're violent on alcohol and you're blacking out, I'm guessing you're waking up full of anxiety and fear. What did I do?
Most of the time, I would end up inside in a cell, you know, covered in blood or cut or whatever, you know, from fighting or from breaking into a car or whatever it was, you know. And then, because of that, I moved to drugs, particularly drugs that would not allow me to black out.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when cocaine was introduced into my life.
Because obviously cocaine keeps you awake.
Yeah.
And alert.
Yeah.
Too alert sometimes.
Yeah. But
and like if alcohol made you black out and violent, did cocaine make you not black out and violent? Or did it keep you calmer?
It just, I could drink what I wanted because I love to drink.
Yeah.
But with the cocaine, it would make me as drunk as I would usually be.
Okay. So you used the cocaine so you could continue to drink without the negative consequences of blacking out and being violent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was about 19 when that all started, you know. And that use just escalated, you know. At the time, I was trying to do a trade as well at the time, carpentry and joinery, and had a few quid coming in, you know. I was after getting myself a little bike, but I wasn't able to feed my habits as well as I wanted to, you know. So I would have got involved in drugs then.
Yeah.
You know, at that age.
So you're at this stage, you're snorting more money than you're earning.
Yeah.
So you need to subsidise the use.
Yeah.
So you go into dealing.
Yeah, I remember before all that really started. No, around that time, I was after having a bad accident on a motorcycle, and I got a compro case from it, and I just used all that money on drugs, and by that stage then I was hooked. You know, I had to have it constantly. You know, and that's when.
How were you without the drugs at the time?
I just wasn't very nice to be around. I was constantly had an attitude, angry, you know. I was just caught up in my head. I had a lot of ego stuff going on for me, you know. I still had that image that I had to protect, that macho image to keep, you know, to protect me, you know.
And did the cocaine heighten that?
Worse. When the cocaine came into my life, when I look back now, at the damage it caused to me as a person, morally, it destroyed me. I became a really, really angry, greedy, nasty person. Something that I really never imagined myself being, you know. And I'm still working on trying to get away from all those things today, you know. And I went through that for about 10 years, from 19 on up until the last day I used.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of madness, which we'll probably get to know.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously we're talking about the aggressive demeanor, the tattoos, the cocaine heightens the ego. You're more aggressive. You're drinking. You're volatile, man. You're in your 20s. You're starting to bring in more money now because you're dealing. So
Yeah.
what way is the lifestyle when you're bringing in more money?
Um, the lifestyle, you know, there was a lot of pros and cons to it. You know, there was money there. I could have done what I wanted. I could have gone on holidays. I could have done this. I could have done that. You know, but the con to it then was I was using a whole lot more drugs more often. You know, I was creating a lot more tension on myself through the Gardaí and which is the police, and through other people that were involved in the same lifestyle as me. You know, because there's a kind of there's you just have to. It's a crazy environment that you're getting involved into. You know, it's an environment that could be good 1 minute and could be very bad the next minute. You know. But I lived that for about 10 years. You know, I would have been involved in drugs for about 10 years from then on, and I nearly, I nearly lost everything. You know,
Because in the midst of all this, you're the child.
I did. My daughter was born when I was 23, and like my wife now, she would have been my girlfriend back then. Seeing a lot of crazy shit, like a lot of mood swings, a lot of aggression, you know, a lot of crazy stuff, you know.
What was it like bringing a daughter or a baby into that environment?
You know, that's a good question, really, James, because I've been asked that before, but I lived the life of complete madness, and I really had no awareness. I had no understanding of the bad I was doing to myself and others, and I just kept doing what I was doing. You know, having a child and changing didn't work for me.
So it's not like, fuck it, this is mental. What kind of lifestyle I'm living, and now I'm going to bring a baby into it. There was none of that. It was like, you're just so entrenched in it. There's a baby, bring her along for the ride. This is just the way it is, and this is how I'm going to be. This is just life for Timmy. There was no like, I suppose you're young as well. You're only 23.
Yeah.
And 20, like when I was 23, I was very immature at 23. So to have that level of, maturity to think about, consequences of actions. Like when you're young, you don't think of any consequences. You just live life day to day. So you have a child now, right? You're dealing and you're getting caught up in all sorts of criminality and mixing with serious people and what if you're looking at any kind of crime involving drugs and stuff like that, there's a lot of paranoia comes with that. And did you experience any of that? Did you ever have a fear of like, I'm going to get caught with this stuff, I'm going to get double figures?
Yeah. That was constantly there. You know, I didn't trust anyone. You know, and that was something that I always had in my life. I brought that from my childhood, the trust issues. You know, I never trusted anybody. You know, and I would have done a lot of my own dirty work myself. You know, when I was in that lifestyle. So in terms of that, I never really got involved with anyone. I always
So it would be more freelance than organised criminal network.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of work for yourself.
Yeah.
The less people that know, the less people can hurt me, type of thing.
that's the way I live my life.
Yeah.
You know. No, you know the shit talk that goes on when you're fucking stoned.
Of course, of course.
You know, we
I
all know
do.
that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, so there's a lot of that too. You
yeah,
know, but I usually kind of keep my cards close to my chest.
yeah.
Um, you know,
And how did it end? How did it all come to a head?
uh, I was getting worse. The violence, I really got worse, more and more violent, James, towards the end. Um,
Yeah.
and I was stacking up charges from the law. You
Yeah.
know,
What kind of charges?
mostly assaults, and violent assault, and robberies, and a lot of shit like that. You know,
Sure, stacking up circuit court charges
yeah,
while on bail,
yeah,
and obviously you know you're going down.
yeah.
Do you know when you get into that? And I've experienced this myself. Do you know when you're in a position where you know you're going to prison,
Mhm,
and then it's like fuck it, you just go all in,
mhm.
and you start picking up charges and
Yeah,
charges. Did you
yeah.
have that experience? Think I'm going to prison anyway. I'm just going to do as much damage as I can, or I don't care about the consequences of my
Um,
actions.
no, I didn't. Do you know what? The way it was for me, James, when I was stoned and drunk or whatever, I really didn't think about anything.
Yeah,
Um, like I had a family at this stage. I had
yeah,
a wife, I had a girlfriend and a child. And you know, when I got sober, then after my benders or whatever, uh, I kind of tried to step into being a family man
yeah,
as best as I possibly could,
yeah.
you know, because I had no idea what I was doing. But
You didn't have anybody to show you really, like
no, no,
you'd no benchmark.
no, no, there was no influence of how to be a family person, or
Yeah,
you know, all my stuff would have been really looking at neighbours in the area, and just seeing how they would go out in the car as a family, or
mm,
how their dads would take them to a football match, or
mm.
and things like that.
Do you know when you, if we could just go back to your childhood for 2 seconds,
Yeah.
do you know when you witnessed that
Hmm.
as a child? Did you long for that?
Constantly, constantly, you know. And when that man, my mother's partner, came into my life, it was very hard for me to accept him as well, you know, because all I wanted was my own father,
Mm,
which never happened really
yeah,
at the time. So you know, it did hurt me, you know, it did, and I always longed just to have some,
bit of
you know,
stability and a
yeah,
bit of
yeah,
love
like,
and a bit of
yeah. I
security.
look at my own fella inside, and like he just, he's so innocent. He's 9, and he's so innocent, and it's all that stuff is still there
Yeah,
within him, you know, and it gives me great pleasure watching him
yeah,
um have that little bit of innocence
mm,
still in him, that he's not kind of sitting in a corner, kind of thinking, you know, there's none of that. He's
yeah.
always with us. He's chat. He's bubbly. He's laughing. He's joking.
He's how a child should be.
Exactly.
But you lost your innocence very early. You didn't have the
Yeah.
luxury of, playing mindless games and
Yeah.
just worrying about what's next thing on telly or food or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of the using. You're
Yeah.
picking up serious circle court
Yeah.
charges. What was the penny drop moment, or what brought it to a head?
Right. It was Christmas back 2011. There was a barn order in the house. I wasn't left into the house by my now wife. Um, I had a serious charge that I was looking at a lot of jail for.
Mm,
You know, I had a lot of fucking mad shit going on in my life as well, on a personal level. You know, I had no awareness. No, I just say this before I go any further. Like James, I could never see beyond the age of 30. You know,
mm,
and like this was 30,
yeah.
30ish. I could never see a life beyond that. I thought I was going to be dead.
Mm,
Could never see it. You know, but going back to that, it was St. Stephen's Day, 2011. Um, there was a barn harder out, and I couldn't see my kids over Christmas. I was living with my father at the time, who came into my life when I was in my 20s, and I'm back out drinking and drugging,
mm,
and I fucking went off robbing again, because I needed more money, you know, and I broke into a premises in town and robbed it and got arrested. During the arrest, there was an altercation with two guards, and there was pepper spray and everything else, and it was just a big, chaotic kind of swinging match, and I managed to get away, and I never forget it. Like, I got away from the two guards because they were actually after being destroyed in pepper spray as well, and I had one shoe on, I had no top on, and my pants was falling down, and I was running up Oliver Plunkett Street, and I was arrested and brought in, and I was in a bad way, you know. But there was just this one thought going on in my head, just this one thought. I had planked drugs on me beforehand, before I got arrested, and I just kept thinking, oh, there was a doctor in me, and there was a solicitor who was checking to see was I all right, because you know, I was bruised and battered, basically, you know, on my own accord, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I got basically what I gave.
Yeah.
You know. But I was inside in the cell, and I was naked, James, and pepper spray was after going into my pores because I was sweating through the altercation, and I just couldn't wait for the whole lot of them to get out of the cell so I could get the drugs that was on me, you know, because I had them planked on me, you know. And when they left the cell, I got up off the floor, I couldn't find the drugs, and I started crawling along the floor in the cell, you know, and there was these little, do you know the way there's droplets of white paint fall off a brush?
Yeah.
I'm crawling around the floor trying to pick up pieces of paint that I'm thinking that are drugs, you know. And it was like I got this flash of light, you know, just this awareness I never had before in my life. And it just came before me, and just said, like, what are you doing? Like, Stephen says, it's Christmas, like, haven't seen your kids, you know. You're back inside in the cell. You're looking at serious jail again for this one, never mind the one you're waiting on. You know what? You know, and I just got up off the floor, and I laid in the bed, and I just fucking suffered for the night until the next day. They interviewed me, and that was the last time I drank, the last time I drugged. I had a serious gambling addiction as well, you know.
What year are we talking?
2011. You know, last time I robbed, I stole. It's the last time I've done anything, you know, bad in my life. And from that day on, I tried to get well. Unbeknown to me, you know, there was just this urge to change my life, you know, so slowly, things started getting better in my life when I actually got out of the police station after 2 days, and or a day, whatever it is. And I was out on bail for another charge. I was expecting to go back straight into be remanded, you know. But for some reason I got out, and I got in contact with my partner at the time, and explained the situation. And she says, you need help, like, you need to get yourself sorted. And I said, no, you know. And I made an appointment for a Heron House down in Blackpool, and they I seen them for a while, and then I got onto a treatment centre, well-renowned treatment centre in Cork, Tabor Lodge.
Yeah.
And they made an appointment for them, and I went down. I got a referral, and they told me I had to do some pre-care, pre-treatment.
Yeah.
So I went there for 4 weeks, and I was clean and sober now for 4 weeks. So I was clean for the whole of January, and I went in there early, I think at the end of January, early February. And because I was going in there, the guards kind of just said, right, he's in there, he's not fucking doing nothing to know, I'll just leave him in there, you know. And I stayed there for the month, and I, you know, I really don't know if I took too much in, James, because
Yeah.
my understanding of going to a treatment centre was, I'm going in here now, I'm going to be fixed so I can go home, go with my partner and have a drink in the weekend and go home and be normal like everyone else,
Yeah.
you know. And
You think you can go back and use successfully the next time?
no, fuck it, I didn't understand that. You know, that was the understanding. Like, I was like a child. I was literally like a young child. I had the mentality of a child.
Yeah.
I didn't know what emotions were. I didn't know what a feeling was. I had no clue. These were all things that were stuffed down in me when I was a really young child, you know, because of my childhood and things like everything was just locked down here.
So when you know, in your first few weeks sober and you're in treatment, did you get overwhelmed with thoughts and emotions that you would suppress for so long? How was it for you?
I really didn't understand them. You know, I was just happy to have my boy, my partner back in my life at the time, to be left back into the home. You know, these were just things that I was happy for at the time.
Yeah.
You know, now some good things happened in the treatment centre. I met some fantastic people. Some people that are still in my life today, and have been a massive help for me. And I would have been lost without them. Basically, they were that good to me. And when I got out of the treatment centre, I had 2 weeks with my family and 2 weeks with my wife. And by this time, my little boy was born as well. He was about 7 or 8 months at the time. And I remember going to prison on the 12th of March 2014, you know, clean and sober.
Yeah. What was the sentence at the time?
I got 7 years with 2 years suspended. It was a violent crime and violent robbery.
Yeah.
You know, to this day I still can't remember the night. I was after coming back from a party and I was after swallowing a box of tablets, Uptown 17s, and I had a half bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
And I just remember waking up inside in a cell the next morning in a white overalls, you know, not even knowing why I was in there. You know, I thought I was after having a big argument with my brother or something like that, and something bad happened. But
so, like, for people that don't know, if you wake up in a police station with white overalls on, that means the forensics is taking your clothes.
Yeah.
And that's never a good sign.
No, never. You know, that's especially when you don't know why you're even fucking there.
Yeah.
You know.
And if you're not in hospital, it's usually somebody else that's after getting hurt.
Yeah.
So you went to prison for 7 years with 2 suspended. What was prison life like? Like you went in there sober? Did you maintain sobriety within prison? And if so, what supports did you use?
I'll start off by the day we were in court. The first day, the day we were in court, the day we went to prison, and I actually fucking tried to get drugs.
Yeah.
You know, because I was overwhelmed with emotions that I didn't understand and didn't know what they were. And I just needed something to get me. It was fear, there was anxiety, you know, and thankfully nobody answered their phone, you know. And we went in, we got sentenced, we went to the prison, we went to Cork prison first, and from there then I was there 2 days, and I was shipped off up to the Midlands and in Port and I spent the majority of my sentence up there, where I interacted with the education services, where I basically learned how to read and write properly. You know, I done my junior cert up there, the RD equivalent, the FETAC level 3.
Yeah.
You know, I got a lot of help from a psychologist, who became a friend, and she helped me a lot. She helped me just to get out that bit of anger, because I was just really angry at the time, and she helped me to get out all that anger, and she listened, and you know, and we were about 9 months into my sentence, and there was a knock at my door in the morning about 9 o'clock. You know, I'm going through all the different emotions and stuff of dealing with my childhood and all these things at this stage, and you you know, in walks the priest and the chief and the class officer, and they tell me my mother was just after, she was dead. You know, she was after taking her own life, and you know, I broke down. It I was going through a tough time as it was. I was early recovery. I was only about 9-10 months clean, and then this happens. You know, I wasn't really speaking to my mother at the time because I was in some therapy, and it was advised to me that I kind of cut contact with the outside world to deal with all the stuff that I needed to deal with, and
I know at the time, your brother would have been in prison with John Portlaoise at the time. Did you? I suppose it was good to have both of you there to comfort each other.
Well, there's three of us there, myself and two other boys, and the three of us were in prison at the time. There was two of us in Portlaoise and Midlands in Portlaoise, and there was one in Cork. And my mother was at home on her own, you know. So, yeah, it was a really, really tough time, you know, because
can only imagine.
I literally broke down. You know, the big haired man was kind of left to the side here, and I just cried and cried and cried.
And did you get out for the funeral?
No, they didn't leave us out. They kept me and my brother Thomas above in Portlaoise, and they left the other brother out.
Yeah.
You know, during the, you know, it was do you know what? At the time, you could feel like you were hard done by and this and that, but the reality of it is, you know, it was probably for the best that we weren't left out, you know, because I wasn't stable at the time mentally, you know, I wasn't really, really well.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying I would have went back and used or anything like that, but
just would have been a lot to deal with.
Yeah. We were brought down to see her in the funeral home for an hour, and the two of us were brought down by prisoner officers, you know.
So at least you got to say goodbye and try to make peace.
You know, you know.
So how was the rest of the sentence? Like, that was a few months into a longer sentence.
Yeah. When I went in, AA would have been a part of my life before I went into prison, and I thought it would be a part of my life when I got in as well, you know. But up there was a bit of a struggle to get the people from AA into the prison because there wasn't enough staff or whatever it may be. I'm not familiar. I'm not too sure what the problem was. And through myself and another one or two prisoners and the psychologist that I spoke about earlier, we managed to get a meeting with the IPS, which is the prison service, and the head of the chief up in the prison, and they came up with a way of getting the facilitators for AA into the prison on a regular basis twice a week, which was fantastic, you know. And I just kept growing and growing, and I met a wonderful man up there who became my sponsor and helped me out a lot. And you know, it was a tough time, James.
Would you say prison helped you?
It did, of course. You know, I got an education in prison. You know, I could barely write. I never filled out an application form in my life. You know, I didn't know the alphabet. You know, I was 36 years of age, and I learned the alphabet, the ABCs in the Midlands prison. I learned the months of the year, you know, all these things.
Like stuff people can take for granted, that every child learns about certain stuff, but not every child does. I remember a few years back there, I went to Rome with somebody close to me, and I was talking about, we had never been to Rome, and we were talking about what's Rome going to be like, and I was talking about the Renaissance and the art and the culture and all this, and they actually didn't know what I was talking about. They'd never heard of Renaissance and Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, stuff that I learned in school, you know, but stuff that you'll be thinking everybody knows this stuff. And like you're talking about, you're an adult in his 30s and you're learning the alphabet, you're learning how to read and write. You were diagnosed with dyslexia, you didn't even know you had it. You come through primary school and secondary school. You know, these are all, you know, it's very hard to believe, you know, that every child doesn't get an equal start in life or an equal education. You know, but it's just important for people to understand that there is children out there, and they don't have the same starts as everybody else.
No, and you know what, James? Because of the life I've had, I can spot those things,
Yeah,
and my heart really goes out,
yeah,
and to those kids because I know that they may be in for a life like mine,
yeah,
where there was a lot of pain and suffering, and
yeah. Because you
you know,
can empathise with them.
I can, of course, yeah.
So you done your junior sort equivalent,
Mm.
learned basics of literacy in prison.
Hmm.
When you got out of prison, then was it education you pursued?
Yes. When I got out of prison, I went on to do my trade at the age of 36, and I got my trade done within 2 to 3 years because the solace at the time,
Yeah, yeah,
solace at the time, I had a meeting with through Cork Alliance, through Sheila. She got me onto a lovely man,
yeah.
in the ETV. His name is
Mm.
Brendan. He's
Shout
retired
out to
now.
the ETB.
But they helped me and they pushed my phases forward, and I managed to get my apprenticeship. I just want to mention this. I did start an apprenticeship at the age of 15,
Yeah,
right? I had no junior cert done. I went to FOSS and we done foundation maths, woodwork, and English, just to get the trade.
yeah,
Um, but um, what you needed at the time, you needed to have a junior cert for a trade.
yeah,
And when I went out there, then I finished my phase 6 in Carlow, and that was a massive thing, like,
yeah,
for me. At this stage, I just finished the FETAC level 5 in St. John's College. I was out about 8 or 9 months at the time.
yeah,
And then I went on and done another FETAC level 6 in St. John's.
yeah. Now, before you go on there, Tim,
Okay.
the stuff you've done in recovery
Mm-hmm.
has been immense, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's an episode in that
Mm-hmm.
alone. So
Mm.
thanks a million for everything you've spoken about. I hope people have got something from it.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next week with recovery
Okay.
and the power of recovery and how you transformed your life
Okay.
and how you transform other people's lives and how you continue to give back and support your family and other people in addiction. So thanks a million to Timmy. Thanks a million for watching. This is episode 1 of the Two Norries podcast. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks
too.
to the lads from Unity Media Network for helping us out. Fantastic. And we'll see you all next week. And we'll hear about the power of recovery and the support that Timmy accessed to turn his life around. So thanks a million, and I see you next week.
Thank you.